Welcome to the video where we count down the 10 smallest towns in the state of Kentucky, and that is incorporated towns. Kentucky has lots of really small little towns, little communities, ghost towns, but these are going to be incorporated towns, and that's actually going to come up later in the video, but incorporated towns that have some sort of a local government, and that's what we're going to consider an official town based on the 2020 census. So we're going to count down from 10 to 1. We have a tie at number 9, so 9 and 10 have the same population. And then in the middle, we're going to take a little detour for a town that used to be in the top 10. So let's go ahead and get started with number 9/10. We're starting out in an interesting little town. This is Keene, Kentucky. And if Keene kind of sounds familiar, you might have heard of Keeneland. It's a big thoroughbred racing area. And it's beautiful driving down here. If you ever come down towards Lexington, we're kind of southwest of Lexington. It's these great farms, these great long fences with the horses. And it's just a spectacular experience driving through. It's a very, very beautiful area. But this town is one of the smallest towns. It's tied for 9th. We got one other town that has the same population. And I'm sitting here in front of the Keene Springs Hotel. And this was built in the 1840s. They had a spring that was discovered here. And so people came and they used it as a kind of summer resort in the 1840s and 1850s. It was also a place of safety during the cholera panic that was in Lexington at that time. So little historic spot here. Let's learn more about Keene and explore the rest of town. Keene grew up around a stone mill built in 1794, was originally laid out as North Liberty in 1813. It's also known as Hardscrabble for a time. In 1830, the first postmaster named the post office after Keene, New Hampshire, his hometown that he shared with a local store owner. The city was incorporated in 1844. It was a small town with a resort, hotel, and a rail line. Following the Civil War, it became a predominantly black community. It was home to the Keene Industrial Institute, a school for African Americans at the beginning of the 20th century. Not a lot of population figures available. All I've found is that the population was 99 in 2020 and that the estimate was 106 in 2025. So it looks like it's probably always been a fairly small community and makes the list here at number 9. Another town with exactly 99 people, the 2020 census, is Tenbrook. And the reason I'm in the car is because I can't actually go there. It's a private gated town. And, sometimes doing these videos, when you find like the smallest towns, sometimes you find ones that are unique or they're not normally towns in the sense that you might think of a town. And Tenbrook definitely isn't. And but I got my drone so I can show you around the town. I can show you the entrance there. And that's about it. But I'll tell you a little bit about this really small town of Tenbrook. As we fly over Tenbrook, you can see it's pretty spread out down there. A lot of green area, nice homes. It's a residential enclave here in Louisville, known for large lots and single-family homes with low population density. It's named after the famous 19th century American thoroughbred racehorse Tinbrook. The horse was a celebrated champion who won a major match race in Louisville in 1878. Tinbrook does not have its own post office, and the median income is over $100,000. You see those population figures are pretty steady. It's gone down a little bit over the years. The 99 that makes our list here as tied for 9th is the lowest it's ever been. You can see off into the distance there. Looks like there's a nice school in the neighborhood. And other than that, it just looks like a nice neighborhood overall. We've made it way out to eastern Kentucky and to Buckhorn, Kentucky. And hard to miss the log cathedral Buckhorn Lake area church here behind me. It's definitely the center of town. You can't miss it. And it's got some other interesting buildings here too. It's a very beautiful drive on in, no matter which direction you come from. Winding, twisting turns. So that's, you can imagine why the town is so small. But it's only been incorporated for a few decades. So let's learn more about Buckhorn. Buckhorn is centered on that Buckhorn Presbyterian Church, which is listed on the National Register of Historic Places. The Buckhorn Children's Center and Buckhorn Lake State Resort Park are also located in the area. Post office was established here in 1902. It's been open ever since. According to local tradition, the name Buckhorn comes from an early settler who had killed a large deer and hung its antlers over an area spring, thus Buckhorn. Also, the name of the stream that flows through the area is called Squabble Creek and is believed to have been named after a fight between the same settler and his brothers. The town wasn't incorporated until 1996, so when you look at the population, there's only 3 census surveys that have information. So 144 up to 162, and then lost about half of that population down to 89. Welcome to California, California, Kentucky. Probably different than most people would think of when they hear the word California. But it, if you're wondering how it got its name, it was founded in 1849. And if that year rings a bell, then you might know why. But we'll learn about that. It's a small town. We're not too far from Cincinnati. on the Kentucky side. If you go down the river, to the west, to the northwest, you'll basically get to Cincinnati. On the Kentucky side, they call it Covington. There's other little towns and cities there. But yeah, it doesn't feel like California today. So let's learn more about this interesting little river town. California was founded in 1849, named from news reports of the California Gold Rush. Post office has been open here since 1852, and California was incorporated in 1874. Historically, it featured mills and industry along the river, much of which was destroyed in the flood of 1937. So population-wise, it peaked in 1890 with 316, went down quite a bit after that, leveled off for a while, and then in the 21st century has been at its lowest point ever, now down to 83. Now we're over to Woodbury, Kentucky, and this is the Green River behind me. And that always reminds me of a video I did years ago on the Green River about the ghost town of Paradise, Kentucky. And it was a song that John Prine sang about that area. And so this is, brings back some memories of that. Woodbury looks like an interesting town. Some pretty nice houses here. They have a museum that's closed, unfortunately, today. But yeah, let's check out Woodbury. Woodbury was settled around the year 1800, was originally spelled two words, Woodbury, B-E-R-R-Y, and it was spelled Woodbury with two words from 1847 to 1871. It grew rapidly in the mid-19th century as a key commercial hub, driven by the 1839 opening of Lock and Dam No. 4, which facilitated river traffic on the Green River. By 1860, it was the largest town in all of Butler County. They experienced a decline in economic activity after the early 1930s, and the lock was finally closed in 1965, ending the era of a busy river town. And you look at that population, we're missing some data there, so it was reasonably decent sized until 1910, and then probably just gradually has dropped off ever since, 80 being the lowest it's ever been since back in 1850. If you're a fan of this channel and Blandville sounds familiar, it's because I did a video about Blandville a couple years ago, about the same time of the year, and I was standing right here, and I learned about how it used to be the Ballard County seat. It's certainly not anymore, as it's down to the 5th smallest town in Kentucky. And kind of reminds me of what it used to be. Hadn't really changed much in a couple years. But let's tell that story again, a little bit more about Blandville, Kentucky. Blandville was founded in 1842 and named for Captain Bland Ballard, who was a hero of the War of 1812. It was formally incorporated in 1845 and was the county seat of Ballard County from 1842 to 1881, when the seat was moved to nearby Wickliffe. Population was pretty high in the late 1800s, peaking at 476 in 1880. After it lost that county seat, it went down quite a bit, and in recent years, it's been under 100 since the 21st century, and 73 being the lowest it's ever been. Our next town on the list is Blaine, although it's technically not a town anymore. So when I do my list, I go by the 2020 census, and this town was in the top 10 smallest towns in the 2020 census, and then they decided to dissolve the town, but I still wanted to come and visit because it's a pretty historic place. It's got an interesting story. Some famous people have come from here, and it's really a cool place once I've gotten here. Man, some ghost town feelings, but also some really cool things to check out. So let's learn about this interesting town that isn't a town anymore. Blaine was originally settled in the early 1800s and established as a local trade center by 1882. It was named after Ephraim Blaine, an early settler of the area. Post office was in operation since 1828. Although it was incorporated as Blaine in 1886, it was also known as Blaine Town or Mouth of Hood for the remainder of the 19th century. Blaine's population declined significantly due to the shutdown of the local Ashland oil field in the 1980s following environmental concerns related to the construction of a nearby lake. The company previously supported almost 100 workers and devastated the local economy. The city government was officially dissolved in 2022. The last mayor was in office until 2014. No one stood for election to the 4-person city commission since 2010. It's also the birthplace of country and bluegrass musicians Ricky Skaggs and Larry Cordell. Interesting looking at the population because it was pretty small in the early 1900s, but obviously that oil field helped the population as it peaked in 1980. But then after that closed, you can see how it went down a little bit and then dramatically went down in the last 20 years. We've made it down to number 4 and over to Gratz, Kentucky, population 67, met by some friendly dogs here in town. Kind of, I don't know, probably a dozen dogs got running around, and a couple of them come over to me and say hey. But this is a scenic drive, I guess you could say, winding roads, and probably really beautiful in the fall with the leaves and all that kind of stuff, and on the Kentucky River. So interesting little town. It's definitely gotten a lot smaller, only 67 people, a lot of abandoned houses. Kind of see some of the stuff behind me. There's downtown up there. So let's learn more about Gratz. Gratz, Kentucky, population 67, 4th smallest town in Kentucky. Gratz was laid out in 1847 on land owned by the heirs of Senator John Brown and was named for his grandson, B. Gratz Brown, who later became a senator from and governor of Missouri, made a failed vice presidential bid in 1872 with Horace Greeley. Before the lock and dam system was built on the Kentucky River, Gratz was one of the most prosperous towns in the entire area. Post office was established in 1844 as Clay Lick due to its position above the Clay Lick Creek. Post office was renamed Gratz in 1851 and closed in 1994. It's home to the only bridge between Owen and Henry County across the Kentucky River. Population peaked in the year 1900 at 246. It's a slow, gradual decline over the years, dipped up to under 100 for the first time in 1990, and has gone back up a little bit and is now at 67. We've made it over to Sardis, Kentucky. Now there's 2 communities in Kentucky with the same name of Sardis. There's one more in the southern part of the state, and there's this one that's, I guess you could say, more in the northern part. It's actually in 2 different counties. It's in Mason and Robertson County. And so if you want to visit this one, make sure you go to the one in the northern part of the state. As I was doing my research, I almost went to the wrong one. So it's kind of just interesting that there's 2 with the same name. You can kind of tell where the old downtown was here. This is US 62, which goes all the way from Canada to Mexico and through the small town of Sardis, Kentucky. Sardis is located on the border of Mason and Robertson counties here in Kentucky. It was named after the ancient biblical city of Sardis, which was one of the 7 churches of Asia mentioned in the book of Revelation. Established as a rural community, it was known for having both pro-slavery and anti-slavery Methodist churches that united post-Civil War. And the community high school was in operation here until 1936. Population was around 250 for quite a while, peaked in 1910 there at 261, just a gradual drop-off through the years, and most significantly, last 20 years, it's lost more than half its population, down to 60. Down to our second smallest town and quite the out-of-the-way spot in Carrsville here, and that's the Ohio River right behind me, and over there, that's Illinois. And it's certainly out of the way. And I don't know if it's the most out of the way. There's been a couple of those on this list, but you can see why there's not very many people here because of how far it is to drive up here. Or over here, I guess you would say. But on the way over here, there is a cool place to get out and stretch your legs. It's called Mantle Rock, and maybe 5 miles from here. And it was along the Trail of Tears, and it was a place where the natives would stop and rest and kind of until they could get ready to cross the river. Maybe the weather would get better, or just kind of needed a rest after a lot of travel. And it's a pretty interesting rock formation. They have a kind of archaeological area there to check out. So if you're coming to Carrsville, you can check out that besides visiting the town. The town does have some things to see, more than some of the towns that are bigger. It obviously used to be quite bigger. And so let's learn more about Carrsville and take the tour. Carrsville was once a thriving 19th century river town that it's said once boasted a population of almost 700 in the mid-1800s. And obviously that was driven by trade here on the Ohio River. Had a post office from 1854 to 1984. Was named after Billy Carr, a local shopkeeper. Was originally known as Carr's Landing before being incorporated in 1860 as Carrsville. Town was once visited by author Mark Twain. The flood of 1937 ravaged this area. The population figures before 1880 were unofficial, so the official largest population was in 1920 at 323, and really dropped off over the years, pretty much downhill every census, and down to 48, which is the second smallest incorporated town in Kentucky. made it around to our final town of Concord, the smallest incorporated town in Kentucky. I'm inside because it's a little chilly, a little windy down here, or up here, I guess, on the Kentucky River. Down here because I grew up in Ohio across the other side of the river, not too far away. So it's interesting to see this town, which I've never been to because it takes a little while to get here. It's hard to get to. One of the reasons why it's so small now. Let's take a look at the smallest incorporated town in Kentucky. Concord began in the early 19th century. The town was officially laid out in 1830 and incorporated in 1833, likely taking its name from Concord, Massachusetts. Served as a riverfront hub featuring farms, mills, and tanneries until the Ohio River flooded much of this land in 1874. Post office opened in 1837 and it closed in 1997. Population figures kind of up and down. You can see in 1870 there, 228, and then again in 1910 at 213. Basically went into the single digits by the 1980s and has really dropped off down to 19, being the smallest incorporated town in all of Kentucky. So we're not quite done yet. In the 2020 census, there was actually another incorporated town smaller than Concord, and it was named South Park View. It's in the Louisville area, and there were 0 people that lived in South Park View in 2020. So I figured a little bonus footage here. Let's go to what was the smallest town in 2020. No longer is a town. I'll explain it when we get there. So I said Concord was the smallest town in Kentucky with 19 people, but technically there's a smaller town and it's right behind me, and it's not those buildings, although that's all that's in what used to be the town of South Park View. And basically the reason it's on this list and we're making a little bonus visit is because in the 2020 census, technically South Park View was a town but had 0 people, and you wonder, like, how does that happen? And I've been to a few of these 0 populated towns before. There's like 9 of them in the United States, and I think I've been to 4 of them. There were 3 in Missouri. There was 1 in Oklahoma called Hoot Owl, and now this is another one here, South Park View. And so we're right next to the Louisville airport, so no drone footage on this town because obviously can't fly a drone near the airport. But they kind of configured the layout of the airport with the runways, and it would go like directly over a town called South Park View that was here. They had a couple hundred people that was incorporated in 1961, and so they tried to move people out in the 2000s. There's a little bit of pushback. They were saying it's going to be too loud. The FFA kind of said things like that. Some people thought it might be like a scam to get people's property. But eventually, in 2010, the population went all the way down to 7. There were some people hanging on. And then by 2020, there was no one here. I think somewhere in the 2015 range was the last person that sold their house. And I'm guessing they kind of bulldozed all the homes. And they started putting in all these businesses, kind of an industrial park in that area where South Park View used to be. So there is still a South Park Road that runs right along where the city limits were. That's about it. I've heard in the airport there's a little plaque that you might walk by and kind of talks about the towns that were in the vicinity of the airport. So you could call it kind of a tombstone of sorts at the airport for South Park view. So interesting wrap up to our series here in Kentucky. What did you think? You know, there were interesting towns. Kentucky is more diverse than you might think. And what I mean by that is, you know, you have old historical towns, you have some towns way out in the middle of nowhere. You have towns kind of like this in Louisville, like Ten Brook was here in Louisville. And, you know, you had South Park View that, you know, obviously wasn't probably part of Louisville at one point. Louisville's a really big expanding city now. And so it's, you know, you got your big cities, you got your small communities, you got your river towns. Just kind of an interesting list. I enjoyed visiting them, even learning about places like this, even though there's nothing to really see here anymore. So what'd you think? Hope you enjoyed the trip as much as I did. And until next time, I'll see you down at Back Road. Hey, thanks for making it all the way to the end of that video. And since you're here, let me tell you a little bit more about the extras on the channel. One of the first things you can do is become a member. There are 3 levels of support. There's supporter, producer, and executive producer levels. All 3 have different levels of fun incentives and perks. If you haven't done so, please check out travelwiththewiseguy.com. There are lots of extras on there to explore. One of them is merchandise. We have Travel with the Wise Guy coffee mugs, Death Go Round t-shirts, hoodies, hats, and all sorts of fun things to show your support of this channel. Also on the website is a custom Google map. I've dropped pins in every place I've visited and linked the episode to each location. This seems to be a very popular feature for many of you. Also, sign up for my free newsletter that goes out about once a month. There are all sorts of links and tidbits on this page, old videos, podcasts, and just about everything I can think of I throw on the website. Get all that information on travelwiththewiseguy.com. Now for the real reason you're here, the outtakes. And Broeck, and the reason I'm in the car is because I can't actually go there. It's a private, gated town, which is kind of unusual, you know. It's a private, I can't talk. I feel like I got company. Hey, buddy. How are you? How are you doing? Hi there. Hey, guys. Checking things out. Coming right over, aren't you? Hi. Hi. Yeah. Hi. You want to come over? Okay. You're friendly. So we're not quite done yet. So in the need to be able to talk. It's cold. My mouth's not working properly. Oh my goodness. That's a first. If you're going to go see Mantle Rock, just be aware.